Okay, so what I wanted to do today was to create a bit of an interactive lesson for teachers and students that they can use to show that Pythagoras' theorem holds true. If you do this as a lesson, if you're the teacher, it can usually takes about half an hour for the students to work through. So if you learn the steps through this lesson and then walk through it with your class, that can be a good idea. Otherwise, if you're a student, you're welcome to just follow along, and hopefully by the end, we'll have created something that looks like this. Okay, which shows that for a right angle triangle, the sum of the squares of the shorter two sides is equal to the square of the longer side, the hypotenuse. So what we want to do is we're going to jump into it. We're going to use a tool, an online GeoGebra tool, an online geometry tool called Geogebra. So you need to type into Google GeoGebra Classic. Don't just type in GeoGebra, it won't work. You got to type in GeoGebra Classic. Okay, and then you're going to get a few options. It's going to come up with axes to begin with. You want to click this icon at the top. You want to deselect the grid and deselect the axes. Okay, and then as you can see at the top here, you've got a bunch of options. The first thing we want to do is we actually want to create a semicircle. And you can make it yay big. Okay, as we go, I just want to delete any things that we don't want. So I don't want that to be labeled with C. So I'm going to right click on the semicircle and deselect show label. Next thing I'm going to do is going to select this button here. I'm going to click point. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put a point on the semicircle. And next thing we're going to do is we're just going to connect A and B together so that we have a nice, actually we don't even need to connect A and B together, I don't think. We're going to click polygon. We're going to create a polygon and we're going to create a triangle that connects A, C, and B. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to click on each of these side links. I'm going to deselect show labels. We don't need these labels. Oops. All right. It can be a little bit tricky sometimes. Control Z to undo is going to be your best friend on this tool. So anytime you see me undo something, it's just because I'm doing Control Z. Okay, we're going to right click on it, then I'll right click on the shape and show label. Okay. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use a property of semicircles from circle theorems, which says that if you have a semicircle and you connect these 3 points like this, the angle created here is always 90 degrees. So we can actually show that if we click on this symbol here and click angle, and then click A, C, B, you'll see that actually comes up as 90 degrees. Okay, as we know, conventionally, using a square represents as 90 degrees. So we're going to right click on that. We just don't want to show the label. Okay, what's really cool about this, and you can try it out at this stage, is you can move this around and you can see that the angle always stays at 90 degrees. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to create squares on either side of this semicircle, or of this triangle, I should say. So what we're going to do is we're going to create some lines. So we're going to click line, and I want a line that's goes across AC. So I'm going to click A and C, and you'll see what I'm going to do here in a second. So I'm going to click a line that goes across A and C. And then what we actually want is we want another line that's parallel to that, the line that's parallel. So we go parallel line. I'm going to click on C, and then I'm going to click on B. Oops, that was perpendicular. I meant to do parallel line. So C and B. Why is that doing that? That's not parallel to that. Okay, click on parallel lines, click on the line, and then click on B. Okay, that's what I wanted to do. Okay, I just need to move this a little bit. So let's move it so we can get a bit more space. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we want to create the square that's going to be around here. Well, so we know it's a square, then this length is going to have to be the same as the length across here and here. So what we can actually do is we can exploit a fact about circles, right? Circles are equidistant from the central point. So if we create a circle between C and B, we can actually see that this point here, from C to this point here, is going to be the same length as C to B. So that's pretty interesting. So what we're going to do is the next thing we're going to do is going to go intersect. And then I'll click on this line and then on this circle. And that's going to put a point there for us. Okay, and what we want now is a line that's perpendicular to this line at D, because then we'll get a line that goes like this, and then we've created our square. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to perpendicular line. I'm going to click on this line, and then we're going to click on D. And you can see the square that we've created here. Okay, let's put a point at this point here, because we're going to create a square out of it in a second. So I think the best way to do it is to go intersect, and then click on the intersection between this line and this line. It's pretty cool. And then we're going to create our polygon. So we click on polygon, C, D, F, B to C. Okay, now we've got a few things we need to do. We've got a lot of lines that we need to get rid of. So we're going to click on this shape. First thing we're going to do is actually going to change the color. So let's change it to green. And then we want to show label. We don't want to show the label. We don't want to show the label here. So we're right-clicking on all of these, deselecting show label. Okay, this one's a bit trickier because we've got multiple things. We want the segment B1 to that, and then we want to deselect show label. Okay, what we want to do now is we want to remove this line completely. We don't want that line there at all. We also don't want this line here, so we're going to delete object. This circle was useful before, but we don't need it anymore. Delete the show object, going to delete that, and I'm going to delete that line. And in fact, I'm actually going to get rid of these objects as well. We don't need these. Okay, so we can see, even though lots of things are hidden, you can see that we've got a nice square that moves around as we move along the semicircle there. I'm actually just going to delete that. I don't know where that came from. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, you can probably guess, is we're going to have to do the same thing again. So you can practice. We're going to create a line. Let's just do this. We're going to do a line from C to B. Okay, we need a parallel line from this line, and it's parallel at the point A. Okay, and then same again, we're going to go circle with center through point. So we're going to go C to A. And we're going to go the intersection between this line and there. And then we want a line that's perpendicular to that. Perpendicular to this, and it goes through G. Okay, then we want the intersection of this point over here. So we're going to go intersect, select these two lines, and then we've got our 4 points for our other square. So we're going to create our polygon. So we go polygon, do it in any order. Let's go C, G, I, A, back to G. Okay, click back to move because otherwise it stays selected on things we don't want it to be on. Let's change it to purple. That looks good. Okay, and then what we want to do is we want to delete all of these objects. We don't need that line. Don't need that line. Don't need that line. Don't need that circle. Okay, don't need any of these points. And we don't need these labels. A lot of deleting in this. So we can start to see that taking shape. All right, here's the one where we need to select the segment, line segment, and then we're going to select label. Okay, I'm not sure where this extra point keeps coming from, so don't need to show that. Oh, that was from the circle. There's another intersection point, I think. Okay, the next one's a little bit trickier. We've got to create the C squared, the hypotenuse squared. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a line. We're going to go perpendicular line. It's going to have to be it's going to have to be perpendicular to this bottom of our hypotenuse. It's going to have to be perpendicular to that. And then you can see we want a parallel line with B. So we're going to click on this again. We're going to click on parallel line, click on the line, click on B. And then again, we want a circle, center through point, A to B. Okay, and I'm just going to move it a little bit so I get a bit more space. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to put an intersection. It's going to intersect. We want this line and this line where they intersect. So that's the point K there. And then as we said before, we want a perpendicular line. This needs to be perpendicular. And then we want the intersection of that. The reason I'm doing the intersection is because I'm guaranteed to get it at that point. Another option is to click on point and then try and make sure you click it at the intersection. But that can be a bit risky and it might stuff up the whole thing. So better to be safe than sorry. Okay, and then as before, we're going to create our polygon. It's going to be a square. Okay, and then I'm going to make it a different color. Let's go black, gray. Okay, and then we want to delete lots of things. Delete. Delete. We don't want to show the label. We don't want the label. Don't want the label. We've got to make sure you click on it. All right, this one here is always the tricky one. Select another. We want the line segment, and we don't want to show the label. Okay, we don't want that object. We don't want that line. We also don't want that line. And these points aren't that helpful anymore. Okay, and this was the other intersection. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so you can start to get a feel for how it's working out, and all of this is movable as well. So the last thing we want to do to sort of prove that a squared plus b squared equals c squared is to put the areas in. So if we click on area and we just click on our polygon, it's going to give us that. And with any luck, we'll be able to move that to the center of the square, center-ish. Okay, and then we click on this again, and then we click area. Let's click the area of that. Oops, Control Z. And let's move it to the center. And lastly, the area of the c squared, which is the biggest square. And as you know, I need to click on move. Okay, it's not too bad. All right, what we want to do is we want to rename this. So we're going to go rename. I'm actually going to click on this, I think. No, what are we going to do? We'll click settings. Okay, yeah, we're going to come over here. We're going to say this is a squared. Okay, because that's one of our shorter sides. Good, so that's a squared. Come over here, text, I'm going to call this b squared. And click OK. And then finally down here, I'm going to call this c squared, it's the longest side, right? Okay, and then we can press X, and very nicely and neatly, if I make this a bit smaller, don't really need that at the moment. We want to look at our finished product. Yeah, nice bit of accomplishment. Oh, let's pick some nice numbers. If I make it, I don't know, let's say, so we'll get it on 7. Okay, 7 is the area of this smaller green square here, and the biggest square, a squared, is 34.22. 7 plus 34.22 is 41.22. So I think that's a pretty cool, yeah, pretty cool demonstration. And for teachers and students to walk through, you feel quite accomplished when you can step through all those steps to sort of get a visual representation of Pythagoras' theorem. So hopefully you found that helpful.